Hey everyone, Thyworm here. I've been playing Crucible a lot, grinding it out in solo self-found, consuming tons of content on the side, and I wanted to bring a little bit of positivity to the PoE community. Because Crucible is really not all that bad. Everyone seems so negative, while player numbers and retention are at an all-time high. So, is everyone wrong? Yeah, I would argue they are, in fact. If you watch basically any PoE content creator, they all seem in agreement on this idea that the league sucks, or that at least the league mechanic sucks. I'm just naming a few here, but yesterday QDog released a video titled Why PoE Sucks in 2023. Big Ducks had huge concerns a few days after league start. Kobe Black Mamba calls Crucible awful in his thumbnail. Ziz complained about the mechanic in multiple videos. I watched the Faded Connection podcast, and there you hear the same sentiments from 4 different content creators, and the list goes on. If you listen and view all of that, which I did, you might get this idea that the league sucks, or that the game sucks even. But if that's true, then why are the player numbers at an all-time high? Well, because clearly the league or game doesn't suck, does it? In fact, the game has been in one of the best states it's ever been, which is why it is so enjoyable to play for so many players, myself included. So what's going on here? As I mentioned, I binged PoE content on the site, and what is interesting to see is that a lot of content creators are in agreement about a lot of different things, which, if you watch PoE content as much as I do, is actually a rather rare occurrence. But they all agree, it seems. And about what? Well, about the UI. The waiting times to channel the Forge, the massive number of useless weapon trees, the fact that you can't recombine and remove unique weapon trees for some strange reason, GGG not posting a what we're working on post, the geodes leading to zones where you just rush to the Forge without killing monsters, overtuned monsters, complaints about the amount of content offered for a 4-month league, and so on and so forth. If I would provide criticism on the league, I might raise the same concerns. It is not that it's not true. These are indeed all quite annoying features or mishaps or whatever you want to call it, but I think where the difference lies between content creators that have been playing for so long and a lot of players enjoying the game is this. For content creators, the Kinda Scout League mechanic overshadows the rest of Path of Exile because they are so familiar with Path of Exile. The base game to them is not that interesting anymore after at least 10,000 hours into the game. On top of that, they tend to have a huge history with the game, and they are reminiscent about how things once were. More fun, more better, more. But they are the 0.001% of players. And while they remember the good old days, they seem to forget from time to time that PoE is still an amazing game, and even though their criticism is completely valid, it doesn't mean the game now sucks. Some content creators recognize this. In fact, most of them mention that in their videos at some point, but their conclusion doesn't seem to change as a result. They are still negative about the league and sometimes even about the entire game. Whereas for players, this is very different. The Path of Exile based game for them overshadows the Kinda Scuffed League mechanic, and while they would like improvements, just like the content creators do, they don't let it take away from the fun they're having while playing the game, because the base game of PoE is simply so good and holds still many new things for the vast majority of players, because after 1,000 hours into PoE you are still discovering new things every day that you might enjoy. And that is what's happening, which is the only logical explanation for the player numbers being as high as they are. I'm not saying we shouldn't criticize the league. We should, of course. GGG can do better than this. We have had better leagues than this, like the previous one. But we should also recognize the framework from which this criticism is provided, and we should recognize that GGG generally takes feedback into account, all things considered. Sure, sometimes it takes them 6 months before they realize Arch Nemesis was indeed really a bad idea, and sometimes it takes them 6 days to tune down Forge monsters and create a UI, and sometimes it never gets changed. That's fine too. But whatever they're doing at GGG, it is ultimately all working towards that single goal, and that is to create a better base game. I think a healthy way to look at a league mechanic is to consider it nothing more than a proof of concept tested by 250,000 players, and the result of that test determines if a league mechanic ends up in the base game, potentially with some alterations, or at a later date, or both. Honestly, there is not a single game out there, I don't think, that can say that it uses a proof of concept like this. This is extremely valuable to have, and I think this is the main reason why the base game is so good, exactly because this is the approach that they're taking. And it's also completely fine, I think. Because even though the league has some annoying components, you know that the base game generally is super fun to play. On top of that, if you're a little lucky, the league mechanic might be fun to play as well. I would argue Crucible generally is quite enjoyable, and now that we're a week in, you start seeing some seriously broken shit emerge from all those weapon skill trees because people are starting to figure out how it works. And broken shit is fun shit when it comes to builds. The longevity of the league will be extended because of that for sure. There's plenty still to discover, and that's one of the beautiful things about this game. The meta is still changing, players are still progressing after no lifing the game for 1.5 weeks. It is just another League Star really. And we only feel like this because the base game is so good. Talking about longevity though, let's be honest, as soon as Diablo 4 drops, the league is dead anyway. This isn't really a 4-month league. That's not really criticism you can have in my opinion. It is a 2-month league. We play D4 for 2 months, we make up our minds about what Blizzard cooked up for us in their forges, and then it is quite likely we'll dive back into PoE again for 3.22. It's fine guys, it's completely fine. So that's my message. It's completely fine. Keep providing feedback because it makes the base game better, but don't let the negativity get to you and take away from the enjoyment of either the league or the game. Because PoE for the vast majority of people is still super fun, otherwise they wouldn't play it. It is that simple. I hope you're having fun. I'm having a blast still. My Fire Trap Elementalist is kinda done. I'm now working on the challenges, which can be quite challenging in Solar Self-Found. Thanks for watching everyone and making it to the end. See you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.